All right, welcome everyone. Welcome. So today is our Power Mentor Day. Today is the day that you get introduced to one of the industry leaders in their field, and you get to kind of get a behind the scenes of how their business has grown from their book, but then you also get to see what they're doing with their clients and how you can use that on your journey to becoming a power author. So, as you all know, we have been really working hard to introduce you all to different types of topics. And these topics come up when we're working with our clients, my clients, when I'm working with my clients and I find that there's either a wall that they are hitting or there's a question that's coming up over and over and over again. Those are things that we want to be able to address to help everyone here in the group. So today we are going to be talking about turning resentment into profit, managing your emotions, how you can use what has happened in your life as fuel for your progression. And I have with us Miss Cordelia Gaffar. Now, let me give her a proper introduction because you are going to want to listen up today. So Cordelia Gaffar is the emotions opener transformation coach. She's helping female change makers and entrepreneurs to use emotions as a power source so that you show up in the world true to self. Now, let me give you a little bit of background on her. After leaving her corporate career as a controller for an IT startup, she chose to homeschool her children, which involved coordinating a lot of activities in the homeschooling community. She was running Girl Scout and Boy Scout troops and a lot more. So having already had 2 miscarriages and postpartum depression, juggling a family and high pressure career, she was ready to restructure her life in a way that allowed her true self to emerge. In this refreshed phase, she emerged as an author, sharing her guide, How to Get Started with Workout Around My Day, in community workshops and eventually as a coach. Now, 5 years into building her speaking and coaching business, she has deepened her practice and shares this sustainable system of self-nurturing with her clients called the Replenish Me program. This is the roadmap to being free to focus on developing the true self, release, restructure, refresh, and rebirth. So welcome, Cordelia.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor.
Hey, I'm glad that we got you here. And I know you had to restructure some things and get stuff in the house, so I appreciate you taking the time to talk to our authors. So let's just jump right on into it. I know it was kind of a painful time, but I think I want to take you back to making that critical decision to start this refresh phase in your life. You know, a lot of our authors are utilizing this book that they want to create as a way to restructure, redesign their lives. And so I want to kind of go back to the moment where you made this decision for yourself that something has to change. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Wow. Yeah. And as you're saying, let me take you back. I actually put myself back in sensory and muscle memory. So at that time, you know, when I really started working on my book, I'll have to say it was actually 10 years ago.
Okay.
Okay. So I was pregnant with my 5th child. And I had already just come to a perfect system to homeschool my 4 kids. And, I had it going on, right? And then I was freaking out because I was like, okay, I can't do 5 kids. So
Yeah.
I decided to find a way to center myself by creating a blog called Living in Harmony Motherhood. And for 5 years, like everything I researched, how we get through the day with like, okay, now I'm nursing a kid and I've got, I'm what do you call it? Potty training a kid, right?
Yes.
So
That's a lot.
yeah, so I'm, researching the different things, what's the best foods to support my depression, because again, now this is a different kind of depression. It's not like postpartum depression, right? And then what do you do when your partner is not supportive, right?
Mhm.
And it was really a rough time. So everything I researched, I made sure that I took like the hour before Fajr, and I would wake up and I would type every day. And out after 5 years, that became my book, the guide to get started with workout around my day, which is a play on words because part of my release in this period of time was to work out every time we had the prayers, right?
Mhm. Okay.
So I would do like 5 to 10 minute workouts either right before or right after every single prayer.
Mhm.
And I would also take a little bit extra time to make wudu. And that would be my, like, I guess, decompression kind of meditation, So just taking some time for myself to sweet talk myself and say, okay, Cordelia, what have you accomplished up to this point in your day? Instead of tearing myself down and saying, you haven't, what I hadn't done or who I yelled at and all those things, I would say, okay, what have I achieved?
Oh,
And so, yeah.
so let me decode this for those who aren't Muslim and don't know some of the words, right? So what Cordelia is saying is that in her regular everyday life, right, she is Muslim and she prays 5 times a day. So these prayers are structured throughout the day at specific times. So in the morning prayer, the early morning prayer, that's the time that she chose to begin to write. And so she added that into her life, like writing during that time, and this was the blog, I believe, right, that came into the book later. Then, before every prayer, something she was already doing, before every prayer, she added some intentionality, some additional intentionality to slow down, decompress, to prepare for that prayer. So that's what she said when she said she did wudu, right? So wudu is like a spiritual cleansing, spiritual washing. So during that time, she used that time for reflection and then got her muscles working with the actual prayer by adding some additional workout time to the prayer. Now, what I love about this, though, is that you use something you were already doing, right? Something that is already an important part of your life, and you add it to it. So to me, it sounds like it's not like I had to add a 30-minute workout, something. It was like you took little bits of time and made use of those. Okay.
Yeah. And I would have to say that really helped me with reversing or maybe creating what I call a happy bubble barrier between what could have been resentment from my husband, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe, yes, at that time he was starting to work from home, so he actually worked from home for a couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
and that was in between the fifth and the sixth child, right? So yeah.
Yeah. Girl, this is some major adjustments. I'm like, this like it keeps going up. The fifth child, and then in between the fifth and the sixth child.
Yeah.
Bless your heart. I've always wanted one of those like big families like that, but I stopped at 3 because I was like, I said, woo, I couldn't get back. I wanted to get back into traveling. I wanted to get back, and I couldn't see how to do it, like with bringing more kids into my life at that time. So I ended up like just stopping. But I love the fact that you were like reframing. You took control over your own life, which is really the bigger thing. Like you took control over it. All right. So talk to me about this decision to put that first book together. How did that come about?
Right. So after 5 years, when I had my sixth child, I said, let me just see if I have enough for a book. And so I had heard that people were downloading their blogs and making books. So I just checked in and I did. And then it was a matter of taking those articles and structuring it into something that made sense to other people.
Mm-hmm.
So fortunately, my sister is like my actual sister is a ghostwriter, and really she has a background in writing as a journalist and everything. So I hired her to edit my book.
Mhm.
And so then I was like, didn't want to overwhelm myself with the idea of doing a big launch and all the stuff, anything that would stop me from publishing the book and getting it out into the world.
Mhm.
So I said, you know what? What's really the purpose of this book and what's the importance of this book? And I
Mhm.
said, you know what? I want women to actually use the information.
Mhm.
So I got the book printed and I just went to the same masajid or the local mosque that I was already doing homeschool activities at, and the community centers for the, Boys and Girls Scout stuff that I was doing stuff at, and just said, could I do a workshop for moms?
Love
And
it.
yeah. And so
So
for the
these were
price of the,
free
I'm
workshops that you were doing.
I was about to say for the price of the book, right? So that book I think was like $10 or $15. So for the price of the book, I would do like a 3-hour workshop. Yeah. So I was not charging my worth, which is a whole different story.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
But I love it because it's one, you're talking about utilizing your personality, like the way that you're, showing up in the world. At that time, you knew that if you added anything that was going to overwhelm you, it was going to stop you from progressing. And what we talk about here in the Power Author Academy is like, don't fight against your natural nature. Use whatever is happening in your life, and adjust to be able to get it done and keep moving forward. So you didn't say, okay, everybody's having these huge launches, I need to do it that way. No, you found a way that was going to work for you, right? For you. And you came into this organically. So you started out by doing these workshops just for the price of the book, right? And then how did the whole like full business come out of just those workshops that you were doing? Did you make a conscious decision like, oh, this is a real business, I'm going to turn this into a business? Or did something just kind of happen, like one particular moment just happened and it just changed from there for you?
I mean, there was a couple of things. I'd have to say the most striking thing, and how I usually tell this story, is that at one of the workshops, someone asked me if I coach, and I said yes. And so then when I went to research what that really meant,
That's right, seize the opportunity.
um, then I thought, ooh, I might need some help. And this sounds like a different type of business, right? Obviously, I'm familiar with business because even after I was a controller of a company, I did some consulting work in the beginning when I stayed home as a business development manager. So I know how to do that. However, like I didn't know, like, how do I need two different company names for being an author and for being a coach, or can it all be the same thing? So I joined a local mastermind. And yeah, and so that was really good for me because it helped me to better understand how to make a hybrid company, because I've got lots of kids, so clearly I can't do a lot of in-person events. And actually, quite frankly, back then it frightened me
Mhm.
to do that. So I just wanted to see how I could make this work online mostly. And so that's what that mastermind supported me in.
Oh, I love it. So I'm pulling out all of the nuggets because Cordelia, like what you're saying here is that you had an issue, right? You had like some confusion around how to actually do this, but you didn't just sit with the confusion. You went and found some mentors, like some help. So you joined that mastermind. And this is kind of like, I'm bringing things back to what we do here in our academy, because we have something called like the team no excuses, meaning that like as we go
Nice.
along, there are going to be things that come out where we don't know and we're confused and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And like most people would do, the people tend to let those things stop them, but you didn't let that stop you. You just got some additional knowledge, some assistance, some mentorship to be able to move through that. So you did that mastermind, and then what happened?
So even after that mastermind finish, it was a year. So I made some relationships because I think it ended with us meeting in person. And so I made, I guess I'd have to say about up to 5 friends in there. And one lady, she remembered me when she started having conferences like the next year. And she wanted me to be a panelist. And I was like, ooh, you know?
Yeah.
So, because that's kind of neat. So I spoke at her conference as a panelist. And while I was there, another woman who was putting together her first event wanted some actual main stage speakers. So I was like, okay.
Mhm.
And so every single possible technical glitch that could happen at your first speaking engagement happened at the second conference that I spoke at.
Yeah.
And so I had like practiced and made this beautiful PowerPoint. You girl. It didn't come up. It couldn't connect with the system. Then I had to because when I was practicing, it was based on the pictures in the slides, but I couldn't see the slides. So I
Oh
had to, like,
no.
so man, I had to wing it like nobody's business. So
Yeah, that is the
anyways,
toughest. That is
so
the toughest.
but halfway through, finally the slides came up. But by then I was in a rhythm and the slides were throwing me off. So I was like, you know what? I made it this part without him. I'm just gonna talk to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So but that was
Did you feel like embarrassed? Did you feel like, because some people that could have like really knocked them down. You know what I mean? Like some people could have really been like, whoa, like how do I come back from this? I'm so embarrassed. Like, did you take it as a personal thing, or did you just see it as technologically? Um,
so you know, I don't know if you're picking up on the pattern of my personality, but what happened was I was like, man, I really sucked. So I need some help with that. So I looked for a speaking mastermind and hired a speaking coach.
I love it. So
Yeah.
you invest in yourself. Yes. Yes. Okay, so talk to me a little bit about like the work that so I'm seeing the organicness, right, of how your business grew from just saying yes to that lady, do you coach? Yes. And going from there and building up. So I'm interested in the work that you're doing now because your background was so varied. Like you had this IT company that you worked for, you had all the homeschooling stuff. Like, I mean, you had a lot of different things, the workouts and how you were working, doing that your first book was on, so how did you really decide what your niche was going to be for the business?
So I knew that my mission was always to help women to create a sustainable system of self nurturing. How to get them to embrace that was the challenge. So what I had in my arsenal, right, was um, for 20 years I had been studying and practicing herbology. For about the same amount of time I had been studying and practicing Unani tea, which is the Islamic medicine. Um,
Mhm.
for that same amount of time, I had been experimenting with different forms of exercise. So I was showing up, and then I had these books. This is my second book with this workout around my day, and I had actually incorporated my business with that name, Workout Around My Day Inc. Right? So I was marketing myself as a health and wellness coach. But when I hired, and I started a podcast in the mix too. So around the fourth year into, or the first year into my business. So um, what I got from those podcast conversations was a better feel for what people really wanted. And when I started the podcast, it's amazing how things are just sitting there and you don't realize they're sitting there. I did a contest to get what do you call it, a title for the podcast.
Mhm.
And what won was Replenish Me.
Mm.
So I've been doing in the background this podcast, right,
Mm-hmm.
called Replenish Me, and interviewing um, a blend of different type of people. And I didn't really have like a crazy listenership. I had like 10 consistent listeners.
Mm-hmm. They were there.
But they were there. And eventually I got up to like 50 and then 200. And I was like, whoa, I just blew up. Right.
Right.
And then I switched, because this was on somebody else's network. Then I switched networks and I blew up to like 2,000 listens a show. And I kept it really for my own personal development. And like you said, when I was doing all the different things, I still hadn't found out what I was doing, except for this was my mission. And you know so I started working with more women after doing getting more speaking gigs on stages, and I was speaking around the world to a variety of different people. And I came up with this thing for a little while called the body soul shift, right? And so I ran a couple of group coaching programs with that, and that was really good market research for me. And so what I found out that women really needed was a way to learn how to consistently pour back into themselves, which takes me back to Replenish Me. So last year, this time, I was about done with my business. I was like, you know what? I can't do this. I'm not getting a consistent flow of clients. I'm getting a lot of speaking gigs, but all I'm doing is like getting paid to speak and sell books. That's not what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And and so I was going to quit. And so I went for a hike, because that's my way to reconnect with myself. And I was like, well, if I was my client, how would I replenish me? And then it just clicked, right? And so I came up with this whole program. Like I all the stuff I had been doing, I just restructured it. And I said, well, let me just run this by some people who wants to try out my program. So now, since last July, I've coached 12 women so far in this Replenish Me one-on-one and group coaching. And I even have an online course version of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I love your story for a lot of different reasons. One is, like that moment of wanting to quit. Everybody hits that moment. Like all of us hit that moment. And especially now when you start to see so many people, I made 7 figures in 7 days.
Yeah, it did happen like that. I just want to say.
Right.
Like for real, like I'm gonna tell you honestly, I know one of those people. This woman has been struggling with 3 different types of businesses. One of them even went bankrupt.
Yeah.
And finally she figured out the formula doing what I just told you. She like had given up but she had a supportive husband. Just imagine if she'd had my husband.
Right. Was like,
Anyway. But anyway, so he was like, no, it's okay, baby, just try one more time. And she tried the one more time, and she started marketing her online business. And she already had a following, right? Because she had 3 other businesses, had been in business for 13 years with those other businesses. So when she launched an online business for $27, all you need is like 10,000 people to sign up for that, and you're golden.
right.
And then you get
hold on. She said, all you need is like 10,000 people to sign. 10,000 is a lot. That's a lot of people.
Exactly. But that's what I'm telling you, because these people come on here and they tell you, oh, just blah, 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 and sell it for $27. Okay. So if you have a following of 100,000, rule of 10%, 10,000 people are going to buy your $27 product. Let's just do real quick math, right?
Right.
What is that? How much money is that? We 10,000 times 27.
Yeah. 270,000. Yeah.
You're already at 6 figures.
Yeah.
You get proof of concept. And how many testimonials are you going to get? All you need is 6 to increase the price. But in that case scenario, you're going to get like 100, rule of 10%, right?
Yeah.
So if you get 100 testimonials, the formula works that you can, like launch that again for $9.97. 997 times 10,000. Now where are we at?
Hey.
7 figures. So that's how that works. That's just
Yeah.
truth. I mean, I know at least 2 people like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like that overnight success that you hear about.
Mm-mm.
It was, they were in the weeds, like they were struggling, they were doing things, trying. Even for myself, I had to switch and make my business at a point when I was like, I had to switch and make my business be a game for me. Like for me to see that, okay, I can try this, test it out, and then see what's working. And then if it doesn't okay, tweak this part. And so once I made that mental shift for myself versus like this didn't work, Serena, like it's a failure, like, go do something else. Because nobody in my family understands what I do at all.
Of course not. Of course not.
They don't get it at all. And so I had to make this mental shift for myself. And what you're saying is that, like, while you were going through your processes, right, whenever you hit something, you either sought out a mentor, a coach to be able to help you with that. And then you came back and tried one more thing too. Like you came back and did something else. So the work that you're doing, like with Replenish, I want to kind of like pull some of that out for our folks, because what I'm finding for I'm going to shift a little bit. What I'm finding for a couple of our authors is that when we're doing some of our work, which is centered in some of our more painful times of life and some of the experiences that we've had that weren't really the best. They were great learning experiences, but they were hard. Sometimes when they're in the writing process and going through that, those emotions start to come up, and it's like a wall for them. Like they don't really want to continue to write because it was such a painful time, right? It's healing for them to write, but it also, through healing causes some pain. So I wonder if you just have any ideas for ways that people can get through that, continue to move through the process of even stepping into those deeper, darker times of their life and coming out on the other side. Like, what have you seen? What can you tell our folks who are going through that?
Well, I can tell you I'm doing it now. I am actually writing another book. So the past couple of years, I've been doing like co-author stuff. But this year, actually for 2 years, I've been putting off writing the book that I want to write, which is about emotions. And I wasn't sure what to call it. Like the end of last year, it was going to be called Replenish Me, right? Because that's what it's about.
Yeah.
But what I saw as the theme as I was writing the book, and those yucky feelings were coming up, that sensory muscle memory was coming up. I found that detaching, right? I would say, I would call it, I'm now calling the book Detached Love, right? Because I detach from the outcome. I detach from the expectation of others. I detach from judging or guilting or shaming myself. And I only focus on the love of the mission and the vision that I have, and who gifted me with that, which, because I'm Muslim, is Allah. And when I attach only to that and focus only on that, it makes it a lot easier. So, I guess to clean that up a little bit, for in English, what that means is it feels really hard, but when I lean into my emotions, because I've done a lot of research about emotions, I know that it only really lasts 90 seconds. And after 90 seconds, that's just me ruminating and making myself miserable with language. Right?
Love that. So say that again, as far as the 90-second thing.
Our emotions chemically in the body only last 90 seconds. So when you have a really intense emotion, like fear, anger, sadness, frustration, if you really allow yourself, don't stop yourself, you allow yourself to lean into that, try to do it only with the muscles. Because once you start using words like, I see him doing this, and then he did that, and then it felt this way,
Mhm.
that will make it last longer because you're going to relive that 90 seconds. It'll be like a boomerang. Broom,
Mm.
broom, and you can feel the boomerang. Like when I first read that, I was like, this scientist is crazy.
Mhm.
They're writing this because they're a scientist, and scientists don't have emotions. And
Oh,
then
gotcha.
and I tested that theory, and I was like, I remember like one day I was really having a moment, and I
Mhm.
was like, okay, Cordelia, don't stop yourself. Just do it. And when we're first born, this is like how I also would relate this to Replenish Me,
Mhm.
that 0 to 5 years old, really, we only feel stuff. We don't really have words yet, right? And we feel it. And what do we do to express it? Kick, scream, laugh, right?
Right? Yeah.
That's it.
Mhm.
But once we hit 6, we have a vocabulary, and then we start giving it words. And so then if you see a 7-year-old have a tantrum, it's very profound, right? That tantrum will last a long time
Mhm.
because what are they doing? They're reliving that first 90 seconds. Remember, if you look back to as a baby, babies, they cry, right?
Right.
And unless it's like a diaper situation, it kind of ends quickly if you show up, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing like when we grow up. When we first have our emotions, it's really intense. But then the intensity stops and we're crying and we're like, oh, like, I don't know if I know for me, it became very conscious, but we operate on autopilot. So mostly we are subconscious,
Yeah.
but we stop crying. And there's a little bit of a pause.
Mhm.
And then you're just like,
Hmm.
it couldn't have been just that short amount of emotion. I have to feel this more.
Oh, so we kind of convince ourselves that we need to stay in it,
Yeah,
and so then we elongate the feeling for ourselves. Hmm.
with the words. Like then that's when the inner chatter starts happening.
Mhm.
And then this happened. And at that moment when the thing really happened, right? So
Mhm.
let's say, you were your situation is like domestic violence, right? So let's say you were thrown across the room or something. And in that moment when you were being thrown across the room, you didn't have any words for that because it's just straight up shock,
Right.
right? But when you think about it 10 years later, it's like in that moment I felt, and you have words for it now, right? So
Yeah.
when you initially remember the muscle memory of hitting the wall, it's like a but
Yeah.
then the word, when you put the vocabulary with it, then it's like I mean, I'm not making fun, but you know what I mean? It's just like you make yourself cry more. You make yourself, because now what you're attaching to that is I should have done. Now you're judging yourself. Now you're guilting yourself.
Oh, so I know that this can be triggering for some of our authors who have like experienced this and worked through this. So I'm going to acknowledge that some of you all may be having that muscle memory right now, as we're speaking about this. And I think that, for us, what you're teaching us at this moment, Cordelia, is that, when we have those types of emotions, all of the other stuff that gets piled on top of it is what really takes us to the depths. So it's like, okay, we had that, but then you start judging yourself. Then you start attaching feelings of self-worth, or I should have done this, I didn't do this, and all of those extra things that we put on ourselves are what we need to detach from. Okay.
Yeah, and to just be completely transparent, I can say that because I was actually married when I was very young,
Mm-hmm.
and that did happen to me. So when I bring up that example, I had to bring up something that I could actually have a muscle memory for.
Mm-hmm.
So um, that happened.
So if you
And
were, go ahead.
when I was wondering why I would cry every time I remembered it,
Mm-hmm.
above and beyond just the feeling. And then I listened to my thoughts and I was hearing what I was saying.
Mm.
But the thing of it is, in that situation, I took care of it immediately.
Mhm.
I called the police. I mean, immediately means like within 12 hours. Okay.
Mhm.
So I called the police and, and those things and, got a divorce, didn't allow him back in my life. You know what I mean? So I
Mhm.
took care of it. So I had to, you know, reframe my language to myself by saying, but Cordelia, you took care of yourself. You did this. It's okay. Okay. So you made you made the poor choice, but you did this. You went forward this way and so I have to like
Reframe it over
self
and over for yourself.
soothe and remind.
Yeah. So, like, what do you say to, someone who is writing about a really deep subject now and they can't seem to detach from those additional words that come up for them? Like, how can they move through that? Because the reason I'm asking is because it comes up a lot, with many of our clients. Some people are writing a simple thing. I won't say simple, but you mean how to start a business, and they just A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or how to decorate your home, or how to clear up your finances, how to increase your credit score. So, those things sometimes do have darker moments in the backstory, but some of the subjects that people are writing about, like abuse or abandonment or things of that nature, can really, really, really hit strong. And I've had a couple of people like have literally been, they want to do it. They want to move forward. Like that's the whole reason why they came and sought assistance in our writers group, is they want to create this book. But the emotions just come up so strong that it really sabotages them for a good, sometimes several weeks or such, and we have to kind of work through it. So it almost turns me into a counselor. Like I have to really like be able to counsel people and pull them through this part. And so I'm just wondering, like, for those people who are going through that and they're finding it hard to do what you're saying, like detach and then reattach to the source of it all, like, is there something, I don't know, I guess I'm looking for a magic bullet. And you can say, okay, Zarina, there is no magic bullet. You just have to work through it. But what do you see as like one thing that they can kind of do to really make that happen for them?
So the good news is there is a magic bullet, but you have to not judge yourself to do it.
Not judge yourself. Okay.
Yeah. So the magic bullet is this. Remember I said when you're a baby, how do you express yourself? I'm not even kidding. Like straight up just cry, scream, kick,
Get it out.
throw stuff.
Oh.
Get it out of your body. Um Another thing that
I
I
like
really
that. Let me hold on, because I think I'm gonna go outside and throw some balls out there today or something. Ah! But I like that because so many of us feel like that's childish, right? Like I would never go out and do all that, like throw a tantrum, because I'm an adult, you know what I mean? But what you're saying is that that's actually a human mechanism, a human coping mechanism. So it's a human way for us to get out whatever it is and then be able to move on. So I like it. Okay.
All right, now the second part is a little bit sexier. I'm sure more people are like, oh yeah, I can do that,
Okay.
right? But you got to do part one. I'm telling you, it's the good stuff. You got to do the part one. The part two is a little bit more fun. You can put on your like favorite music. I
Okay.
really strongly encourage reggae, and positive, powerful like Bob Marley reggae. Something that's really good for moving your hips,
Mm-hmm.
because I talk a lot about energy centers, and so our hips are the
For women,
creative,
for
right?
women, yeah, for women. Okay, this is
For women
really
and men,
good.
yeah,
Okay.
for men too. But it's a creative energy center. So moving your hips, and the other thing is our lower back and our hips is also where we have emotional support issues, financial support issues, repression. In cases, I've worked with some women who, were sexually abused or whatever. And so moving your hips, but to music, right? And listening to like, I don't know, what is a good Bob Marley song? Like the Three Birds.
Oh, I like
Yeah,
that.
One Love. There we go. So
Uh-huh.
something like this is a really good form of release. And many women, they find that it's like, wow, I didn't even know my hips were locked up. And wow, I feel free.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a dance contest. It's literally just like leaning into and letting your hips free.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So get moving, get moving.
Yeah. And shoulders, like hips and shoulders, because the shoulders represent like other people's stuff, right? So other people's energy, things that people, have put on you. They've judged you, they've shamed you, they've guilted you. And now you're holding that as your own. But like, I always encourage exactly what you did, like throw your shoulders back and like in your mind, if you want to use some words with that, it's like, get off my back,
Hey, I like it. Get off my back.
Yeah.
All of them off me. Some of you guys gonna be doing that for a few hours. Just get off me.
Get off my back. Yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah, and shake it, just literally shaking it out of your body. Now there's some other more intense stuff that I believe that there's actually what is it called? I forgot what it's called, but like a lot of trauma workers, there's some kind, I forgot what it's called, but I don't practice it because I think it's better to flow with your body and your energy centers.
Mm-hmm.
But they do this like actual shaking thing, and they
Mm-hmm.
shake and scream.
Okay.
Same thing I'm telling you, but different energy, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when you lean into your emotions and muscle release from that, as opposed to just forced shaking, is better. And I mean, the women that I've been working with,
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm.
I mean, the women that I've been working with, they've like reversed like actual shoulder pain, hip pain. Like they had been going to physiotherapists and everything, and no one could help them with their joint pain problems.
Mm-hmm.
And then just going through my process of Replenish Me and doing this release thing, they finally are like, oh, because now they understand that it's not just a physical problem.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about emotions, it's the limbo land between our physical form and our spiritual form, right? So this is literally a peptide chain of chemicals that flows through the body. And this peptide chain is in every single cell. Think about that for a minute. So you can't do one without the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
It like prevents your mitochondria from working. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of your cell,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the mitochondria is usually the part of the muscle cells, liver cells, and fat cells.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we are in extreme stress, right, there's a fat layer that forms across our waist. And this is just the way our body works. It's a protection, right? So we have a protective layer that forms. And so in our muscles, right? For women, most of our muscle power is in our hips and our thighs. And then our liver helps to detoxify the whole body. So think about that for a minute. If you're storing all these emotions and you're not releasing them, what's happening? Have you ever tried to lose weight and can't,
Mm-hmm.
even though you're doing everything by the book?
Yeah.
It's directly related to emotions. And then sometimes people lose weight and they have all this emotional turmoil.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because when your body was going through stress, it was protecting itself by creating the fat layer. So as you shed the fat layer, right, you're releasing the weight of your emotions, which has been disguised in a physical form as fat, extra fat cells. You
Mm.
understand? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow, I love this. I love this, connecting the emotions to the science of it all so that we can clearly see exactly what's going on. So, okay. I want to kind of recap because I think that this little exercise, like the shoulder exercise, the movement exercise, is something that, you know, our people can do while we're writing, while we're actually writing. So I'm going to encourage those of you, not even people who are not those of you who are just having a like an emotional response coming up, but this is something that you may want to just incorporate every, you know, hours. Take a quick 2-minute break, you know, roll the shoulders, get up, throw on one song, a song break. I think I might incorporate this, you know, into our stuff as far as the writing part, like take a song break and get up and move. And don't just sit there trying to hammer out for 8 hours and get frustrated with yourself and have all these things come up. You're allowed to take breaks in this writing process. Anytime that you feel like emotions that are coming up for you, you know, you can sit and think about, what are the words that I'm saying to myself? Are they conducive to my progress, or are they hindering me? And if they are hindering you, then, you know, shake it off and do what you need to do, and then reframe it for yourself. Reframe it in a space of truth, right? Reframe it in a space of truth. Because most of the stuff that we tell ourselves when we're doing that is not in reality. You know, it's the negative thoughts that we're bringing to ourselves. So Cordelia, you've taught us something today that we can actually take and tangibly introduce into our writing processes. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. And you know what? That's what I used to teach in my workout around my day workshops. Put on a timer so that the last 5 minutes of every hour that you get up and move.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So same thing what you just said.
So how do they get in contact with you? Do you have, I know you have your website or something that people can, if they want to find out more about you and your Replenish Me work and the things that you're doing, how do we get in touch with you?
Right. So the two best ways, there's, you know, like you just said, my website is my name, CordeliaGaffar.com.
I'll put it down below so you guys will be able to just click it. Mm-hmm.
And the next way is to join my Facebook group, which is called Replenish Me Group.
Okay.
And it's just a free Facebook group where I post every day different themes. So, you know, like Sweet Talk Sunday, Mindful Monday, Tools and Fuel Tuesday, What I Desire Wednesday, Terrific Thursday, Freeing Friday, and Self-Nurturing Saturday. And just little questions or, you know, prompts for you to reframe your day.
Oh, I love it. I love it. All right. So I'll have the links below that you can click into. And I hope that you have taken away today, one, to free yourself from any negative emotions that you've been having. It's perfectly normal for us to have them, but now we get to redesign our lives, and we get to reframe and restructure and see how we want to take this thing going forward. So if you're having those, it's okay, but now we need to work through them, right? Because we can't allow those to sabotage our progress. And the other things that we want to take away from what Cordelia just taught us today is not only that physical thing that we can do, the shaking off, taking a break, but also, you know, continuing to move forward when there is a moment of uncertainty or a moment of confusion. You know, just the fact that we don't know something is not enough for it to stop us. You know, you get help. Seek out a mentor, seek out a program or something that can help you move through that. We don't have to be know-it-alls. There are going to have a lot of times, there's going to be a lot of times where we don't know something. So it's perfectly okay for us to say, like that sucked. Let me go find a mentor to be able to help me with that. So the sucking part is not the problem. Staying with being not good is the problem. So find some help. So Cordelia, is there anything that,
Yeah.
that you want to say? Any last remarks?
I just want to remind you that if it sounds like it's not your voice, it probably is not your truth. So you are always the creator of your elevated opportunity.
Woo! You are always the creator of your elevated opportunity. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Cordelia. I appreciate you coming in and sharing with our audience today. May God bless you to ascend to all of the new heights that you are going to be ascending to, and put the angels of support around you as you continue to work with your clients, and everyone that you and then your clients touch. We appreciate you, and we appreciate you living your truth so that we can live ours.
I mean, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye, everybody.